I'm Cheryl Chumley. This is Bold and Blunt, giving you a Christian conservative view of news, politics, culture, and events. Gal Kalev, thank you for being on Bold and Blunt on this historic October 7th day. Thank you so much for being on Bold and Blunt.
My pleasure.
So I see behind you, you are right outside Temple Mount. Actually, you and I stood on that exact location a little less than a year ago. Tell me what's going on now in Israel on this historic day.
Well, today is obviously a very sad and reflective day. Um, Hard to believe, but a year has passed since October 7th. But it's not just a memory day like we remember the Holocaust or remember something from the past. We're still in an active war that's escalating. And as we spoke many times on Bold and Blunt, Cheryl, um, uh, we are facing a dual assault, a physical assault that is happening through Iran, Hamas, Hezbollah, various other Iranian proxies, and an ideological assault that's coming from the West, and those two are interconnected. So today, on October 7th, we see them both. We had a physical assault today. We had missiles, rockets still coming in from Gaza. We were hoping that we can finish Hamas by now, but as you know, Cheryl, our hands are constrained. They're constrained diplomatically. They're constrained militarily. You know, the certain weapon suppliers of Israel do not want to give us weapon. I guess they want to prolong the war. I guess they want to prolong the suffering of the Palestinians. So we're still fighting a war in Gaza. We're still sadly having casualties. An Israeli soldier died today from wounds he sustained in Gaza. And Hamas still has ability to launch missiles at Tel Aviv, which they've done today. So this is the physical front in the south. We have a physical front, as you know, in the north with Hezbollah. We've lost another Israeli soldier also in that arena. And then we had missiles coming directly from Iran the other day. And as we spoke then, this was shortly after our previous interview. I went to the Kotel, the Western Wall, and then the sirens came, and I've hidden inside the tunnels outside of Temple Mount. So we have a physical attack, and we're feeling it today on October 7th as we're mourning, as we're remembering, the people who died, and as we certainly remember the people who are still alive in Gaza, held over a year by Hamas. We are fighting an active war as we speak, but we're also fighting today on October 7th, sustaining an ideological assault that's coming from the West. French President Macron has a new idea, and that idea is to call the world's nation to embargo Israel. I mean, we're fighting a war.
Gal, you faded out just a little bit. What were you saying that Macron's newest endeavor is? I know
Sorry,
he's
it's very windy here. I'm saying that as we're fighting the physical war here in the north, in the south, we also need to sustain an ideological assault that's coming from the west. So on October 7th, as we're mourning, as we're remembering, hostages, as we are actively fighting the war, as we have husbands, sons, people actively risking their lives and sadly dying, we're also having an ideological assault from the West. Macron yesterday basically called the world's nation to embargo Israel. Even though we're fighting a multi-arena physical war, we are the active front of the Western world war on terrorism. We're protecting France. We're protecting America. He wants us not to have weapons. He wants us to have an embargo. So Iran can win. So Hezbollah can win. So Hamas can win. This is astonishing. But that's what he did. And we have the EU foreign policy chief having a new initiative where he wants to issue sanctions against Israeli elected officials that we vote for, but that he doesn't approve of the way they speak. This is not even anymore some accusations of a war crime. This is about words, freedom of speech. We have other fronts that are escalating today. And so on this October 7th, we remember we are actively fighting for our lives and for our survivals in the multi-arena, 7 arenas of the physical assault in Iran, from Iraq, from the Houthis, from Hezbollah, from Gaza, and sadly also from the West Bank. But we're also sustaining an unbelievable, who would have thought, an ideological assault from the West, and such as the one from Macron.
So last time we spoke, as a matter of fact, and it was really incredible. You were hunkered down in a shelter near the Western Wall, you said, as you were sustaining attacks, as Israel was sustaining attacks directly from Iran. And it's really remarkable that here we are a year later, and there are still, I think, 101 hostages being held in Gaza. And the attitude from the global entities is that it's Israel's fault. How is Benjamin Netanyahu holding up politically? Has the Israeli people sort of coalesced him, 100% behind him? Because I know that there were some political enemies he was facing early on in the war against Hamas.
Yeah, so Israeli politics is more nuanced. It's a little bit different than the American politics in the sense that I would say virtually all Israelis, with a few exceptions, supports the policies of Netanyahu when it comes to the war. If anything, there's accusations that he's not aggressive enough. Why have you only now started the war with Hezbollah? Why have you not done it over the last year? That's some of the opposition. But in general, most people, over 90% of Israelis are behind Netanyahu's policies when it comes to conducting the war. At the same time, as we've had for the last 40 years since the Labour Party came out of office, about half of Israelis, want to have the other party in office. So anything and everything is being leveraged for that, and that's been like this for 40 years. So the cost of living, the policies on COVID, the judicial reform that the left, wanted to have my friends in the Israeli left wanted to take powers away from the activist courts. Netanyahu's government did it, so now they're opposing that. So certainly, when it comes to the war, when it comes to do we do a deal? Do we not do a deal? Is there a deal? All of those points are being leveraged by Netanyahu's opposition to try to unseat him. So there's this dual reality, and I think some Americans don't understand. I think even people like Chuck Schumer's and American politicians don't understand that we're, and Israelis on the left are probably right now downstairs here in the Western Wall praying for the success of Netanyahu. It's part of the prayers. We're behind him. We're behind everybody. We're behind our soldiers. We're behind our government. That doesn't mean that they don't want to, unseat him and have somebody else win. So we sort of separate politics from the war for our survival. We're in the middle of war. We're in the middle of a war that we have the Israeli people united, fighting together, side by side. There's no politics, there's no divisions. And sadly, as we speak all along, as you said, how could this be? We're being attacked. We're fighting for our survival. We're fighting for the West. We've eliminated in 1 week, I think about half or something like that of the top people in the U.S. most wanted list. And still, somehow, this is being spun at us as that we're the bad guys. And that just reaffirms what we've known for 2,300 years. The mere existence of Jews, our
And that
lives, is defined as a crime against humanity.
And I want to point something out for watchers right now, because in the background, as you're speaking, we're hearing the Muslim call to prayer, right? And at this exact time, as Israel is engaged in wars on so many different fronts, I believe, and you can tell if this is true or not, that Muslims are still welcome and feel safe walking in downtown Jerusalem, correct?
100%, of course, and I see that there's, as you mentioned, the call for prayers, peaceful prayers. Not only that, Muslims are fighting also in the Israeli Defense Forces. Muslims have died in the Israeli Defense Forces. Some Muslims have, did heroic rescue, came to rescue people on October 7th. And that's what we've talked in the past. I mean, yes, we have a conflict. We have a conflict even behind us. But Temple Mount, we have a conflict. We have a political conflict like Spain has. With Basque, with Catalonians, and actually with the Muslims. That now some of them have a claim to Spain. Switzerland has a conflict with Jura. The difference is that the West have invested billions of euros and dollars to incite and to conflicticize this conflict. We're here, we have this war because we have been, there is actors outside that have decided that we will not have peace here. So, this is, I know your audience are very much supportive of President Trump, but this is the one thing I disagree with President Trump, where he keeps on saying that solving the Israeli Palestinian conflict is the most difficult deal to make. I don't think it's that difficult. I think solving the European Muslim conflict or the French Corsican conflict, might be very difficult. We can solve it much easily, or at least address it. Maybe not solve it, but address it if we have less outside intervention. If we have if the ideological assault on Judaism coming from the West will subside. But here you have Macron and others, and sadly people in the United States as well, the Treasury Department, the State Department, who are sanctioning Israeli Jews. The State Department will try to hijack the Lehi law and try to defund the unit in the Israeli army. I mean, so the world's saying, okay, if that's everything that's happening, then maybe that's true what we've been told for 2,300 years, that the Jews are the bad actors. And yes, we have those subset of Jews who say, oh, no, it's not us. It's the Jews in Jerusalem, in Tel Aviv. It's not us American Jews on the Upper East Side. That's exactly what they were saying 80 years ago. It's not us, the German Jews from the Upper East Side of Berlin. It's the Russian Jews. And yeah, they're right. You see them everywhere. They're badly behaving. But us, German Jews who served in World War I, we're fine. So we've seen the same patterns all along. We're in an attempt to eradicate the Jewish nation, which is much more advanced than the last century's attempt. And sadly, we're seeing the same patterns that we've seen in the past. We're seeing the attempt to destroy us is not carried only through a physical attack, but primarily through an ideological attack that's coming from the West, from the ICC, from sanctions, from my friends in the media, from the attempt to delegitimize the idea of a Jewish state, and through that to delegitimize the idea of Judaism. And you know what, Cheryl? I think that the assumption, this is an election year, that Jews in New York that control sort of like the narrative in the Democratic Party are making, that Jews, in Pennsylvania and Arizona and Michigan don't vote based on Israel. They vote based on progressive values, and I think the Jews in Pennsylvania now understand, or at least many Democratic Jews that I speak to, understand this reality, that this attempt to delegitimize the idea of the Jewish state is just a way to delegitimize the idea of Judaism. This is an attack against them, against Jews who vote for the Democratic Party in Pennsylvania, and they get it. And Kamala Harris always says, I will not be silent. She's silent. She's silent on this assault on Judaism. And people that are not Jewish, including African Americans, understand this. They understand that the assault on Judaism is a proxy for an assault on Americanism. This is an attempt to negate the Judeo-Christian principles of America, and it also has a very real impact. I mean, the ICC tried to go after American troops. They got sanctioned by Trump. Now they're going after Israeli troops and Israeli political leaders and basically all of Israelis. All they got to do is cut and paste those indictments and indict Obama for murdering bin Laden or bin Laden's son, or indict, American soldiers who served in Iraq. So Americans, Jews and non-Jews, understand that there is an assault on Judaism, and I increasingly understand. Certainly, I'm hoping that my book and what we're doing here and contributes to this understanding a little bit. That the assault on Judaism is a proxy war for an assault on Americanism. If you want to defend America, you got to defend in the assault on Judaism that's happening right now, that's coming from the West. And sadly, this is not what we're seeing. There is silence. Kamala remained silent when Macron suggested that we should just fight with our fists and arms, and then everybody should defund the Israeli army as we're being attacked by Iran. Kamala was silent. We were attacked by the UN, by the EU, and we were attacked by the February 1st executive order that gave the Treasury and State Department a broad license to sanction Israeli Jews and create a sense of demoralization and Jewish insecurity for Israeli Jews here in Israel for the first time in 80 years.
So we have to wrap it up. Maybe if you can just take like 60 seconds to answer this final question, but just a quick comment. That would be good news if Jewish voters in America woke up and stopped knee-jerk voting for the Democrats, because it just seems counter to their interests, both here in America and in Israel. But just to wrap up with this one last question, Gal, if you can answer quickly, what do you foresee as being sort of the momentum that changes this war, that puts an end to this war? Do you see that happening in the next few months, in the next few weeks, this coming year? How does this end?
How did this war end? We win. The suggestion in the West, including in the Biden administration, is that how did this war end? We surrender. We surrender in Gaza and allow Hamas to stay. just waiting for the next October 7th, which will conveniently happen after the election. How do we? What are we being told in Lebanon? Ceasefire. I mean, we have Hezbollah violating the international law that the UN itself have put in that they're not allowed to be in southern Lebanon. They've been doing this for over a decade. We're addressing that. So the way to end this war is for us to win. We're changing. This is a historical change of the realities in the Middle East, and the people from the West can make a decision. They can be amongst those who bless us, or can be amongst those who curse us. And how do we end this war? Have people in the West, like Macron, like people in the EU, like people in the UN, and certainly people in the administration, bless Israel and allow us to win. And allow us to win this war against terrorism, not just for our sake, but for everybody's sake. And this is how this war ends. It ends through victory, and I hope people will be with us as it happens.
Well, certainly Christians in America, the Christian community, know that to bless Israel is to receive God's favor, and the opposite is to receive His curse. So, I want to thank you. I
If I
want
may,
to. Oh,
particular knows that because President Trump blessed Israel. Even people on the left agree. And Trump was certainly blessed, and Christians point out to that.
Gal, your new book, The Assault on Judaism, is very crucial, very prophetic, really, at this time, and I hope it sells well and people glean a lot of insights from reading it. I want to thank you for taking the time on this very sober day to be on Bold and Blunt. Gal Kalev from Israel, thank you so much.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.